Same job, same $90,000 salary. 5 American cities. In Columbus, a typical rent is about $1,500. In New York, it is more than $3,500. That one change can turn the same paycheck from comfortable into a monthly balancing act. So today, we are putting one salary through 5 real locations to see where $90,000 actually feels strongest in 2026. To keep this fair, imagine the same person in every city, a single renter with no children and no consumer debt. We use the standard deduction, no retirement contribution, and no employee benefit deductions. Then we apply the same basic spending framework in every place. This is not a perfect personal budget. It is a clean comparison designed to show exactly what location changes. Start with the paycheck. On $90,000, the 2026 single standard deduction leaves roughly $73,900 of federal taxable income. Estimated federal income tax is about $10,970, and Social Security plus Medicare takes another $6,885. Before state or local income tax, monthly take-home is roughly $6,012. For housing, we're using Zillow's June 2026 typical metro rent, not one cherry-picked luxury apartment and not the cheapest room on Craigslist. It is a broad market benchmark. For the rest of the budget, every city gets the same core assumptions. $250 for utilities and internet, $600 for food, $350 for health and insurance costs, and $200 for phone and household basics. First stop, Columbus, Ohio. The typical metro rent is about $1,528. Ohio's 2026 state tax and Columbus's 2.5% city income tax bring estimated monthly take-home down to about $5,650. That local tax matters, but the rent is low enough that the math still starts in a healthy place. Give this renter a realistic car budget of $750 a month, including payment, fuel, insurance, and maintenance. Add the shared core expenses and modeled essential spending reaches about $3,678. That leaves roughly $1,972 before debt, retirement, entertainment, travel, or a major emergency. That is why the viewer who said $90,000 in Ohio should feel fine has a point. In Columbus, this salary can support a decent apartment, a car, regular groceries, and meaningful savings. It is not unlimited money, and a large student loan or expensive family plan could change the result. But for our single renter, $90,000 looks genuinely comfortable here. Now we'll move the same paycheck to Austin, Texas. Texas has no individual state income tax, so estimated monthly take-home stays near $6,012. Zillow's typical Austin rent is about $1,653, and that rent was slightly lower than a year earlier in the June report. On paper, Austin immediately gets a valuable head start. Use the same $750 car budget and the same core spending assumptions. Modeled essential spending totals about $3,803, leaving around $2,209. In this 5-city comparison, Austin creates the largest monthly cushion, even though its rent is a little higher than Columbus. But do not read that as free money. Summer electricity can jump, insurance can vary sharply, and living farther from work can turn a cheaper apartment into more fuel and more time on the road. The useful lesson is that zero state income tax helps, but housing and transportation still decide whether the advantage survives your actual lifestyle. Next is Chicago. Illinois applies a 4.95% individual income tax, putting estimated monthly take-home around $5,653. Typical metro rent is roughly $2,275. That is $747 more than Columbus rent before buying a single grocery. Chicago changes the transportation equation. If our renter uses transit and occasional rides instead of owning a car, we can reserve about $300 rather than $750. With the shared core costs, modeled essentials total around $4,175. The remaining cushion is about $1,478. That is still workable. The apartment may be smaller, the neighborhood choice may move, and the commute may get longer. But avoiding a car recovers part of Chicago's rent premium. This is why a budget cannot compare rent alone. A city with higher housing costs can still compete when daily transportation is cheaper and more predictable. Now the hardest test, New York City. After estimated federal, payroll, New York State, and New York City income taxes, take-home is roughly $5,395 a month. Typical metro rent is about $3,573. Rent alone consumes approximately 2/3 of the paycheck that actually reaches the bank. Add $250 for transit and occasional rides, plus the same utility, food, health, phone, and household reserves. Modeled essential spending reaches about $5,223. The remaining amount is only around $172. That is before retirement, debt, entertainment, travel, furniture, gifts, or the first unexpected bill. This does not mean nobody can live in New York on $90,000. It means the default solo renter version is fragile. A roommate, a smaller apartment, an outer borough location, employer-paid health benefits, or a cheaper food routine can reopen the budget. In New York, those choices are not minor optimizations. They are the plan. Finally, San Francisco. Estimated monthly take-home is about $5,558 after federal tax, payroll tax, California income tax, and state disability insurance. Zillow's typical metro rent is roughly $3,301. That is lower than New York in this data, but it still absorbs close to 60% of take-home. Reserve $300 for transit and occasional rides, then add the same core expenses. Modeled essentials reach about $5,001, leaving around $557. A car-free lifestyle helps, but it cannot fully overcome rent at this level. $90,000 sounds large until the housing payment takes more than $3,000 every month. So here is the clean ranking. Austin leaves about $2,209. Columbus leaves $1,972. Chicago leaves $1,478. San Francisco leaves about $557. New York City leaves roughly $172. Same salary. 5 completely different margins for error. The gap is bigger than it first appears. Moving from Austin to New York under this model reduces the monthly cushion by more than $2,000, or roughly $24,000 a year after tax. That is like taking an enormous pay cut without changing the number printed on the job offer. To match Columbus's remaining monthly cushion with the same simplified lifestyle, the New York salary would need to be roughly $125,000. San Francisco would need roughly $116,000. Those are estimates, not promises, but they show why a $10,000 or $15,000 raise can disappear when a move changes rent and taxes together. Your answer can change fast. A roommate can transform New York. A paid-off car can improve Columbus or Austin. Employer-paid health insurance can add hundreds back to every city. Student loans, childcare, expensive prescriptions, or a large retirement contribution can remove hundreds. The salary headline is only the starting point. Before accepting a job in another city, compare 4 numbers. Monthly take-home after location taxes, realistic housing, realistic transportation, and fixed obligations. Then subtract a savings target before calling the remainder disposable. That simple order prevents a high gross salary from disguising a tight life. $90,000 is not secretly poor, and is not automatically rich. In Columbus and Austin, it can buy comfort and progress. In Chicago, it can work with trade-offs. In San Francisco and New York, living alone at typical rent can make it feel surprisingly thin. The number stays the same. The city writes the lifestyle. Which city should we test next?